Most people think digital infrastructure is a real estate problem. It is not. It is an infrastructure sequencing problem. Traditional real estate is driven by location, zoning, capital stack, and exit timing. Digital infrastructure, on the other hand, is driven by whether power, interconnection, and network capacity can be delivered in the right order, at the right scale, on a timeline that aligns with compute demand. The misconception is that a data center is just another industrial building with specialized tenants. In reality, the building is often the least important part of the decision. By digital infrastructure, I mean assets whose value is governed less by the structure on the land and more by access to power, interconnection rights, fiber proximity, and delivery certainty. In traditional real estate, entitlement and construction unlock value. In digital infrastructure, value is unlocked only when invisible systems agree to cooperate. Utilities, transmission operators, grid planners, and network providers matter as much as zoning boards and lenders. This is why land that looks perfect on paper often fails in practice. The asset is not the parcel. The asset is the sequence. What actually constrains decisions is not capital or demand. It is time and coordination. Power capacity exists on paper long before it exists in the ground. Interconnection queues stretch years. Transmission upgrades depend on approvals that have nothing to do with the site itself. A developer can control design, capital, and construction. They cannot control when a utility delivers capacity or when a regional operator clears a queue. This is the core difference. Traditional real estate rewards execution speed. Digital infrastructure punishes anyone who assumes speed is theirs to command. The real choke points are controlled by actors who do not behave like real estate counterparties. Utilities are not sellers of a product. They are stewards of a system under regulatory constraint. Transmission operators optimize for grid stability, not developer timelines. Network providers prioritize redundancy and latency, not land values. These actors do not respond to pricing signals the way landlords, tenants, or lenders do. This is why money alone does not solve the problem. Capital can accelerate construction, but it cannot compress physics, permitting, or grid planning cycles. Incentives routinely mislead otherwise smart actors. Brokers focus on acreage and zoning because that is what they can see and market. Landowners price sites based on industrial comps rather than infrastructure readiness. Investors assume that demand growth guarantees absorption. Each of these incentives is rational in isolation. Together, they produce systematic error. The assumption is that demand will pull supply forward. In digital infrastructure, supply often moves on its own timetable, regardless of demand signals. This mismatch is where projects stall, capital sits idle, and value erodes quietly. The common assumption is that data center value comes from buildings. In reality, it comes from infrastructure timing. A modest structure with secured power and near-term interconnection can outperform a larger, better-designed facility that waits years for capacity. This is why traditional underwriting models break down. Lease rates and cap rates matter, but they are downstream variables. The upstream decision is whether the site can be energized and connected when tenants need it. Miss that window, and the rest of the model becomes academic. The consequence of misunderstanding this is not overbuilding, it is missequencing. Capital gets deployed into land too early. Design advances ahead of power certainty. Expectations harden before constraints are resolved. Believing in digital infrastructure isn't the issue. Treating it like traditional real estate is. The project isn't the building. The project is aligning land, power, interconnection, and time. Get that right, and everything else follows. Get it wrong, and no amount of demand can save the deal.